The search for Nancy Guthrie has reached a threshold where hope begins to collide with forensic reality. Inside her Tucson residence, investigators have identified biological material that does not belong to the 84-year-old or anyone within her known social architecture. It is a foreign signature left behind in a home that has become a sealed crime scene. On this, the 20th day of her disappearance, the Pima County Sheriff's Office has shifted the narrative entirely. The investigation is no longer looking for a solitary figure in a ski mask. They are looking for a team. And the silence from the desert suggests they may already be too late. 20 days. In the lexicon of missing persons, it is a duration that sits uncomfortably between an active rescue and a cold case transition. Nancy Guthrie vanished from her home on a Friday, leaving behind a community in Tucson that has now transformed her front lawn into a sprawling, makeshift memorial. Flowers, votive candles, and handwritten pleas for her return line the perimeter, yet the house itself remains an empty vessel of unanswered questions. The official record from the Pima County Sheriff's Office is clinical. Detectives are currently processing hundreds of leads, but the momentum is largely internal, shielded from the public eye. What is known is that the perimeter of the Guthrie property was breached. Surveillance footage captured a figure at the door, a man whose face was obscured by a ski mask, carrying a firearm that appeared poorly fitted to its holster. But there is a detail in the latest procedural update that has fundamentally altered the scope of the search. While the world has focused on the lone individual captured on the doorbell camera, the authorities are now explicitly refusing to rule out the presence of accomplices. The implication is clear. A kidnapping of this nature, involving an 84-year-old victim and a 20-day disappearance, may require a level of logistical support that one man alone cannot provide. The investigation is currently operating on two distinct tracks, the digital and the biological. Forensic teams are currently engaged in the painstaking process of investigative genetic genealogy. This is the same sophisticated technique utilized to identify suspects in high-profile cases like that of Brian Koberger in Idaho. It is not a simple database match. It is a multi-generational search through private DNA archives to find a distant relative, a third or fourth cousin who might lead them back to the owner of the DNA found in Nancy's home. The process is slow. It is deliberate. And for a public accustomed to the rapid resolution of televised crime, it feels like failure. However, the timeline of the Guthrie case must be viewed through a professional lens. In the Koberger investigation, 47 days passed before an arrest was made. In the search for Gabby Petito, 39 days elapsed before her remains were located. By these standards, day 20 is not a stalemate. It is the height of the evidentiary grind. There is a growing friction between the visual evidence and the outcome. On camera, the suspect appeared almost clumsy, attempting to obscure the lens with handfuls of grass before eventually pulling the device from its mount. His attire was erratic. His weapon handling appeared amateurish. Yet he has successfully vanished for nearly 3 weeks. This creates a significant investigative paradox. How does an individual who appears so ill-prepared on camera manage to evade a search involving hundreds of law enforcement officers and the full weight of the FBI? The answer may lie in the geography of the desert. The Guthrie home is located just over an hour's drive from the international border at Nogales. It is a transit point where tens of millions of people cross annually. It is a place where, historically, the southward flow of traffic receives significantly less scrutiny than those entering the United States. If Nancy Guthrie was transported across that line within the first few hours of her abduction, the investigation is no longer a local search. It is an international recovery operation. While the public waits for a breakthrough, investigators have been quietly canvassing specific retail hubs across Tucson. They aren't just looking for witnesses. They are carrying a list. It contains 40 names and 40 photographs. These files are being presented to the owners of gun stores and more recently, to the staff of local hotels. The strategy suggests that the authorities have identified a pool of individuals of interest, people who may have purchased equipment or rented rooms in the days leading up to the disappearance. But as they move from shop to shop, an unsettling pattern has emerged. The individuals on that list aren't just local residents. Some of them have histories that lead directly to the one place investigators fear most: the border. The mechanics of an abduction are rarely as simple as they appear on a Ring camera. Experienced federal investigators point out that holding a victim for 20 days requires a support structure. This includes a secure location, a method of transport, and the ability to maintain the victim's health without attracting attention. In the Guthrie case, the absence of a vehicle description remains a critical void in the public record. In a neighborhood as quiet and dark as Nancy's, a strange vehicle should have left a digital footprint. Detectives are currently reviewing hundreds of hours of surveillance footage from neighbors' floodlight cameras and doorbell sensors, searching for a car that doesn't belong. Why hasn't a vehicle been identified? It is possible the suspect parked blocks away, utilizing the darkness of the Tucson streets to move the victim on foot to a waiting getaway driver. This reinforces the theory of a second suspect. If one man is tasked with the physical extraction, a second is required to maintain the engine and watch the perimeter. There is also the matter of the biological evidence. If the DNA found at the scene does not match any local or national criminal databases, the suspect may have no prior record in the United States. This narrows the investigative options significantly. It forces the authorities to rely entirely on genetic genealogy, or the hope that a member of the public recognizes the suspect's gait, his backpack, or his specific mannerisms. Despite the brazen nature of the crime, walking into a residential area in a ski mask and knocking on a door, the suspect has left remarkably few clues. Forensic experts note that the suspect's decision to cover the camera with grass while appearing amateurish shows a conscious awareness of surveillance. He knew he was being watched. He knew he had to disable the eye of the house. Meanwhile, the Pima County 911 Center is being overwhelmed. They are receiving hundreds of calls daily, many of which are not actionable tips, but theories and opinions from a concerned public. This noise creates a secondary challenge, the danger of a critical piece of information being buried under the weight of speculation. The sheriff has been forced to issue a rare plea for the public to cease calling 911 with anything other than verified, actionable evidence. The infrastructure of the investigation is being stressed by the very community it is trying to protect. As the investigation enters its third week, a chilling reality has set in for the Guthrie family. There has been no ransom demand. There has been no communication from the abductors. In professional kidnapping scenarios, there is almost always a quid pro quo, a demand for money, a political statement, or a release of information. In this case, there is only silence. No proof of life has been offered. No instructions have been sent. This lack of contact often points to one of two grim possibilities. Either the motive is not financial, or the situation has escalated beyond the abductor's control. But there is a third option, one that involves a specific type of professional actor who doesn't negotiate with the public. To understand the current state of the search, one must look at the jurisdictional landscape. The FBI has moved into Tucson in force. Under federal law, there is a principle known as presumptive jurisdiction. If a victim has been missing for more than 24 hours, the law presumes they have been transported across state or international lines. This allows federal agents to lead the investigation, even without concrete evidence of a border crossing. Reports indicate that the FBI's hostage rescue team, an elite unit trained specifically for high-stakes extractions, has been present in the area. The deployment of such a unit is not standard procedure for a typical missing person case. It suggests that the authorities may have intelligence regarding a potential location, a stronghold, that would require a tactical intervention. The focus on Mexico continues to sharpen. Former federal agents who specialized in cross-border violence note that the proximity to Nogales cannot be ignored. While Mexican law enforcement has issued statements claiming they have no evidence Nancy is in their country, investigators view these claims with a degree of professional skepticism. Official denials are often a matter of public relations rather than an accurate reflection of an ongoing clandestine search. The border itself is a complex filter. While entry into the United States involves rigorous document checks and biometric scanning, the southbound journey is often a matter of simply driving through. A vehicle containing a victim could, in theory, pass into Mexico with minimal risk of inspection, especially if the abductors are familiar with the patterns of the border guards. However, the cartel theory remains a point of contention. Organized crime groups typically avoid the intense international heat that comes with kidnapping a high-profile American citizen, unless there is a significant strategic reason. An 84-year-old woman does not fit the typical profile of a cartel target. The motive remains the most elusive piece of the puzzle. Is this retribution? Is it a personal vendetta? Or is it a random act of violence that has spiraled into an international incident? The search of local hotels adds another layer of complexity. If the suspects are from out of town or out of the country, they would have needed a base of operations. Investigators are looking for anyone who checked in using a suspicious ID or who displayed unusual behavior in the days surrounding the Friday of the disappearance. They are looking for the ghosts in the system, the people who were there but never truly present. As we move into the weekend, the procedural status of the case is in a state of controlled stasis. There are no press briefings scheduled. The sheriff's office has retreated into a period of deep analysis, likely waiting for the results of the DNA testing and the surveillance video reviews. This silence is strategic. In high-stakes abductions, law enforcement will often go dark to prevent the perpetrators from monitoring their progress through the media. If the abductors believe the police are at a dead end, they may become careless. They may attempt to move the victim, make a call, or use a credit card. Every move they make is a potential point of failure. The legal distinction between an abduction and a kidnapping is also relevant here. An abduction is the act of taking someone against their will. A kidnapping, in a strict legal sense, often involves the element of a demand, a quid pro quo. Because no demand has been made, the authorities are technically dealing with an aggravated abduction. This changes the legal framework of the warrants being issued and the type of federal resources that can be permanently allocated. The involvement of the hostage rescue team indicates that the FBI is preparing for a recovery scenario rather than a negotiation scenario. You do not bring in the HRT to talk. You bring them in to breach. The fact that they have been seen in Tucson suggests that the window for a peaceful resolution is viewed as closing. The 40 names being circulated at gun stores are likely individuals with prior criminal records or known associates of persons of interest. By checking retail outlets, investigators are trying to link a specific individual to the firearm or the holster seen in the video. If they can find the point of purchase, they can find the owner. And if they find the owner, they find the driver. We are now entering a critical phase. 20 days is a psychological breaking point for both the community and the investigators. The memorial outside Nancy's home continues to grow, with neighbors leaving letters addressed to the kidnappers. Pleas for mercy, grounded in faith and community spirit. One letter, left in a yellow envelope, urged the captors not to be the reason for Our Lady of Guadalupe to weep. But the investigation does not run on pleas. The coming days will be defined by the results of the DNA analysis. If a match is found through genetic genealogy, an arrest could happen with startling speed. We have seen this before. The long silence of an investigation, followed by a sudden, middle-of-the-night raid. If no match is found, and the Mexico leads remain cold, the case risks entering a protracted state of uncertainty. The FBI will continue to monitor the border, and local detectives will continue to sift through the noise of the 911 calls. What happens when the media cameras eventually leave? The search doesn't stop, but the pressure changes. For the Guthrie family, the next 72 hours are vital. As the weekend begins, the sheriff's office remains on high alert, even without public availability. They are waiting for a single hit on a database, a single recognized face in a hotel lobby, or a single witness who remembers a car parked where it shouldn't have been. The question remains, was Nancy Guthrie the target, or was she merely the victim of a team that underestimated the digital shadow they would leave behind? The answer is locked in a laboratory in a city currently holding its breath. The hearing for the latest procedural motions is not yet set, but the clock is ticking on the forensic viability of the evidence. We will continue to track the movement of the federal teams and the updates from the Pima County Sheriff. The desert is vast, but it is rarely silent. Somewhere, someone is watching the same footage we are, and they know exactly who was behind the mask. The search for Nancy Guthrie continues.